Namaskar. Welcome to DGI with Sri and Sri. Today is the 5th of September, Sunday, and this is episode number 239. Here are the main points. Qatar behind image-conscious Taliban's return to Afghanistan. Pro-ISIS extremist attempts a terrorist attack in New Zealand Mall and is neutralized. The DHS, that is the Department of Homeland Security, confirms people on watch list among those evacuated from Afghanistan. Indian Prime Minister Modi to visit US late September for bilateral discussions with Mr. Biden and also to address industry groups. In Afghan news, Qatar behind the image-conscious Taliban's return to Afghanistan. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel, sir. Your thoughts?
Namaskar. Good morning to everybody. I think my thoughts are that we have been talking about Qatar, and now it's apparent that the Qatar is far more visible in the analysis and the news, most appropriately. So Qatar has maintained a diplomatic or a footprint for the word diplomatic is probably most inappropriate because nobody has recognized there's no government. But there's been a footprint for Taliban and whatever you want to call the rep office based out of Doha. The deal in 2021 was struck with the transitional government between United States and Taliban. And now you can see all the catastrophe coming out of it. And there is slowly but certainly information is beginning to trickle out that, either both the good and the bad, there is some element of responsibility for Doha or Qatar to be accountable for.
And India and US are closely watching Pakistan actions in Afghanistan, says Foreign Secretary Shringle. I think Mr. Shringle is in New York now, isn't it?
He's come to New York. He'll probably attend the UNSC session, and then there's always something going on in UNSC, United Nations Security Council. This is General Assembly, not the Security Council. There's always discussions going on. He was here in Washington D.C. For 2 days. He seems to have held discussions with a number of groups, including the business groups, probably setting the stage for the Prime Minister's visit. And it was interesting for him to make the observations that they're keeping a very close eye, both United States and India keeping a close eye on what's happening, with Pakistan and its alleged or appropriate involvement with what's happening inside Taliban.
And Kabul airport reopens. Domestic flights will be operational soon, says Qatari envoy. So suddenly now Qatari envoys are making statements, sir.
Well, that's the reason why we started with the analysis. And just even going back to the prior point, I used the phrase Afghanistan rather than Pakistan association with Taliban. I used the phrase Taliban because the reason is there seem to be various groups within Taliban. They seem to be working with some groups. Now, here you are, lo and behold, what happened? There was an advice that don't fly over Afghanistan. There's no air traffic controller after the United States left. And there's no statement from Taliban, but there's a statement from Qatar, which is Qatar envoy to say the domestic flights will soon resume and the airport is open. And it's almost like, giving, a voice of support, but also a reassurance to indicate as to what is to come out of Taliban and Afghanistan in the days to come as it regards to movement of people. Remember, there's still people stuck in Afghanistan from at least few countries.
And Pentagon will not name ISIS terrorists killed in airstrike. We've always had questions about this. Now it leads more weight to our doubts, sir.
Well, first and foremost, they will not name terrorists. They say that, they took out 2, they took out 5, but they will not name who they are. But they did confirm after insistence from Taliban that there was civilian casualties, which reluctantly, subsequently, they confirmed. I think this whole management of the exit and the execution of the strategy by the Biden administration, each day contradicting some other news or denying the news or not talking about it, is making it look less and less and less credible. And the bad boys look better and better and better in terms of the engagement of the global media and global audiences.
And Panjshir takeover, the media reports are propagated by Pakistan and Taliban, and that is a lie, says Ahmed Masood. Sir, I have been looking at some channels. India also, some channels are saying that they have been pushed back, and they have even showed videos of them retreating. Your thoughts, sir?
I can only go by. I mean, I think you probably cover far more extensively on this topic with both in the various platforms of PGurus, but also outside the PGurus where you opine on this matter. But what we are hearing, from here is that the truth is very much muddied at this time. There's a lot of propaganda that is going on. There is no love lost between what we call as the present resistance. Is a good part of Northern Alliance is part of it. So the role of Pakistan and their involvement in trying to make a case out of this can only be assumed to be, muddling the waters rather than any truth coming out.
And the Department of Homeland Security confirms people on watch lists among those evacuated from Afghanistan. This is a concern that we have been expressing for a long time, sir. And in fact, this White House spokesperson, Jen Psaki, said that that is not the case. Now the truth is coming out.
Well, it depends on which day we are talking about, which day they spoke. The same thing happened in all the border skirmishes and issues. And then we find ourselves, exactly the opposite to the truth. I think same thing is happening in the case that you will find that many people who were in the no-fly list or no travel list, possibly landing in United States. And they say, Jen Psaki made a point that we will do the proper security validation and assessment. Mr. Biden and his team have said the same. It remains to be seen whether that is the case or, as often the case, the fading memory, erases these truths until, if there is a calamity, then this may surface again. But otherwise, everybody seems to be lost in their own specific world, muddling the waters. Going back to the previous point, both Mr. Saleh, the vice president who is leading the resistance movement, as well as Mr. Masood, have issued statements. And I think BBC has also, this is the information that I have. The BBC have got a recorded information from both these people through a voice line. Obviously, there must be, otherwise the location is known. Information is known that they are still here and they are controlling the agenda. So that just tells you, in the instance, that there is a lot of a propaganda. Very similar to what we are seeing here, that everything is okay, everything is okay, everything is okay. But then you find that people who are not wanted are here. We have, just to wrap up, there's a similar conversation taking place. How many people left? All Americans have come out, maybe few. Now the number has gone up to few hundred maybe left behind in Afghanistan. So in summary, the truth is muddled, and it's going to take a fair amount of time for us to get to the bottom of it. So whatever we say today may not hold true for tomorrow, because none of us have any kind of on-ground input resources in that region.
Now, I've heard a few things from various commentators in India on this, and I'm just going to put it out there, and you will have to verify it from other places, but we are just putting out what we heard. And these happen to be like the ISI chief is now currently in Kabul, and evidently he's trying to sort some things out between the religious head and the person who's going to be heading the government. Evidently, this person has left without informing General Bajwa. There is some friction there. We don't know. Also, there is news that thousands of Americans are now in Pakistan. Nobody knows what their purpose is. They're saying you can go and look at any five-star hotel there. It is filled with Americans. We don't know that. We have not had any videos confirming this. And there's also an interesting news that the United States, while leaving, have left a lot of places where there are like ammunition dumps with money, and nobody except the United States knows. Again, it's all something that we picked up from various social media channels. We have to wait and see how these things develop. But stay tuned. The last word about US's role in Afghanistan has not been said yet. Let's move on to global news. Pro-ISIS extremist attempts a terrorist attack in New Zealand mall and is neutralized. Sir, when did this happen? And I hope there are no casualties.
It's over the weekend. He attempted to, or he did stab about 6 people in a mall. The border. This guy apparently is a Sri Lankan resident or a Sri Lankan ex-Sri Lankan national who is now naturalized Kiwi or New Zealander. He has been on the watch list, and he's supposed to be, belonging to the ISIS group. It's very clear that this is being now framed as an ISIS terrorist attack or attempted terror attack. Obviously, he did hurt 6 people with stab injuries, and he has been taken out by the security forces at the mall.
And Saudi Arabia and its allies in Yemen have blamed Iran-backed Houthis for the long-range ballistic missile attack in the eastern region close to the Dhahran and Dammam area of Saudi Arabia. The incendiary balloons continue from Gaza into Israel. Israel has rejected the new quartet of Egypt, Jordan, and PA, Palestinian Authority, for the resolution of Israel-Palestinian Authority issues. Sridharji, Saudi Arabia first, and then afterwards your thoughts on what is happening with Israel.
Well, first and foremost on Saudi Arabia, it's a very dangerous development that there is a ballistic missile that was fired at the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, which is the Dhahran and Dammam area, that was taken out or neutralized, and people could hear the explosion. That is in the border of Bahrain. If one looks at the map, that's where vast number of Saudi's oil installations are. Saudi is saying that this is Iraq-inspired, the on-ground Houthis who have launched this attack, and is obviously very, very regrettable. Please keep in mind that this is a very important issue in the context of when we get to the Indian news, we'll cover this. Both Pakistan and China have intercontinental nuclear ballistic missiles. India has now just launched a satellite. We'll cover that in that section. But this is a very dangerous development, both within the context of drones, which we have seen attacks coming out of Iraq, and now you have had from Yemen this ballistic missile coming out. So this is to wrap up that part of the item. With regard to Israel,
so is it Iraq or Iran? Houthis?
Sorry, Iran, okay. Not Iraq. I stand
corrected. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry for that. Israel. Very seamless between Iran and Iraq as to what's happening right now. Large chunks of Shia population, notwithstanding the fact that 2 different countries. To come back to your question on Israel, it seems Egypt. I think we discussed this. The Middle East summit. We discussed, Egypt taking a very active role, both in Gaza as well as in Palestine, for trying to form a relationship with Jordan. Trying to forge a community which involves Israel in terms of peace negotiations, to bring in Iran, etc. So what they're saying is there's a historical alliance, which is EU, United States, Palestine, and Israel, that is basically on the resolution of the West Bank solution. The other thing being is also in the Iran, you have this same 3 and plus the Iran involved, Israel and Iran involved. Now, what you're finding is that Egypt is now slowly asserting its right. This is what we talked about. In the absence of a coordinated global power, we are beginning to see more and more assertion of this polarized set of communities trying to frame issues and solutions. Remember, Egypt is powerful. Jordan is in the border. Jordan is quite powerful in that specific region from a interpolitical, reconciliation point of view. There's a substantial Palestinian population in Jordan, etc. So it's very interesting. So what did Mr. Naftali Bennett say? Naftali Bennett said, I have no interest in this, so please get out of our way. So he seems to have given a very clear opinion that he's not interested in any negotiations or discussion with this specific group on this topic. Now, he seems to have support from United States, and he's also said US and Israel will deal with this issue of Palestinian Authority and resolution. It will not have any other parties, at least in the preliminary stages of framing the discussions.
The contender to succeed Mr. Suga, Mr. Fumio Kishida, says that dealing with China is the top priority and favors partnering with United States, India, Australia, and the EU. Russia to tighten grip on islands claimed by Japan with an economic zone. The British aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth will make a port call from Saturday to Thursday in a US base in Yokosuka. Sridharji, a lot of activity now around Japan, and Russia is rattling the saber.
Yes. First and foremost, I think over the weekend when we went away, Mr. Suga resigned. He recognized very quickly. Firstly, he didn't want to have snap. He was advised against snap elections. He was advised of a leadership change that is warranted in terms of the LDP which is his party, trying to get back to power. So there's leadership contenders emerging. And it's very refreshing to see the former foreign minister raising his hand and reaffirming and putting China as the problem, and it needs to be addressed, which will be the framework of the Japanese policy. And again, it is reassuring that he seems to carry the same message from Mr. Shinzo Abe, who is the architect of, in many ways, Quad, notwithstanding the fact others may try to claim, but he is the architect, but basically saying EU, United States, India, Australia to be the main fulcrum behind protecting the sovereignty and as well as the broad, what you call where the trouble is, which is the East Asian or East China or East China Sea or East Asia Sea, or whichever way you want to call it, East China Sea, around the Japanese islands, obviously South China Sea. Taiwan and Taiwan Strait is pivotal. We have seen that as far as Japan's sovereignty is concerned. It's only a matter of time. They say that if Taiwan is taken, after Japan is taken, it's only Australia. None of these nations are capable unless you have a large superpower. Now, the adjacent news that follows that is the HMS, which is Dart, which has come to Yokosuka, which is where the 7th Fleet is based. It has made its voyage. It is in the South China Sea. It is in the Pacific. It is docked there. That is a reassurance in the absence of not that regular interval navigation of the US ships as it used to happen before during President Trump's time.
And EU managed the Afghan withdrawal and the Belarus sanctions well, and will talk to Taliban but not recognize the government. Belarus to receive large batch of weapons from Russia, says Lukashenko, and the United States to give more than euro 45 million additional aid to Ukraine. I'm presuming this came out of the talks between Zelensky and President Biden, sir.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry, just to wrap up the last point. In the southern Japan, you have China in Senkaku. In northern part of the Japan, you have the Russians, creating trouble for the disputed islands. We have actually covered this quite extensively, again, Daily Global Insights, as well as in the other discussions. So we won't touch on that. But if you remember, Russian Prime Minister also visited. They are revving up the defense infrastructure there. Plus, now they're trying to promote a trade zone in that part. Why trade zone? Because obviously Russia will say we'll trade with any of the South China nations as well as with Taiwan and so on and so forth. If Taiwan chooses to create more trouble for Japan. So that is why you have both in North as well as South Japan facing problems from Russia and China. Now you go back to Belarus. Belarus has got huge problems in Europe. So what does Russia do? Russia supplies arms to the teeth and to Mr. Levchenko's regime, which is nothing short of being fascist and putting people behind bars, and anybody who is a dissent, same as what happens in Russia, the same treatment. And we have also seen they're trying to push refugees into the adjacent states, creating problem for the adjacent states as well. So you can see the Russia meddling its fingers. Because why it's meddling its finger? Why? One, EU is not united, so you can see as a result of that. You can also see Britain is now distracted, notwithstanding Britain's visit, into the Black Sea. Britain is distracted. It's put its resources into South China Sea to combat and help Japan and broad part of Indo-Pacific. Then you are beginning to see trouble in Ukraine from Russia on the Crimean side, and Russia, and very soft pedaling by Biden in terms of, he made an initial attempt with an exercise that happened with NATO in that region, but Russia is holding sway around that entire region and now extending itself into Japan. Remember, we again covered 2 days ago in Daily Global Insights the whole issue around the 17-nation exercise that they are doing in the Russian around the Moscow area.
And Libya continues to be unsettled many years after the fall of Gaddafi, and internal groups continue to fight. Somalia's Puntland sends troops to fight Al-Shabaab in neighboring state. Sridharji, I have written a long article about Libya's challenges and how they were trying to bring back the money that was salted away by Gaddafi in various foreign locations. This came 2-3 years ago. I don't think things have changed much, sir. What is the latest in Libya and also the development in Somalia?
Good. So I think we covered this topic, if you recall, that there is an Egyptian group which is a guerrilla leader and being supported. Generally, that particular group is supported by NATO. Then you have a set of rebels who are supported by Egypt, by Turkey. Then there is a set of rebels supported by the ISIS group, which is operating in that specific region. So you have this continuous, the Libya itself is divided into 2, 3, 4, I think it's 3 different regions controlled by 3 different forces. So you see constantly skirmishes happening. It was quiet, but it's now back to troubled waters again in the absence of any specific superpower being present and keeping an eye on that situation. But one good thing is that the oil supplies, I believe, are not yet disrupted. That is coming out of Libya. Now, with regard to your specific question around the money that is locked away, that is stashed away, that is to be, maybe that process is still going on. And it's also possible that many of the countries where this is located, they may not want to get rid of that money, given that it is easy money. And there's no nation in the world, including United States, which is, slushed with money. So therefore, that could be the other reason as well, that the money is not getting out.
And let's take a look at United States news. President Biden to mark the 20th anniversary of 9/11 with a visit to all 3 sites. Biden blames Delta variant for weak jobs report. In fact, I think the net gain in jobs was zero, as in zero.
Yeah, the net gain in jobs as a result of Biden's policies is zero. There were 235,000 jobs, was very, very disappointing. Immediately, Mr. Biden blamed the Delta variant to be the cause. And so therefore, none of his policies. In fact, there's an interesting study. We, in a 30-minute window, we stretched it from 20 to 30. In a 30-minute window, it's impossible to cover the depth and scope. We looked at, the analysis says the afflicted or the affected communities to which was the COVID stimulus directed has not met its objectives. For example, African-American communities, those who have been in long-term unemployment, those who have basic degrees, those who have just finished college, all those communities still remain, locked up in a very difficult situation, unable to get out. So an independent analysis has found out that these long-term aggrieved communities, socially distressed communities, continue to remain, notwithstanding billions and billions, if not, I have to use the word trillions of dollars pumped in. Remember, in the first phase, $6.5 trillion was pumped into the economy, and we are still there. This goes back right from the days of the stimuluses that even Mr. Obama's administration injected post the global financial crisis. So I think that's the summary of why you're seeing this depressed jobs situation and why people are unwilling to come back to work.
And Democrats block a bid to stop Biden's $3.5 trillion bill from sending taxpayer money to countries with slave labor, notably China. Why is an infrastructure bill directing a certain amount of money, that too to China?
Very interesting, because you see how you need to kind of peel the onions, if you have to use the phrase. There's buried under that is about $8.7 billion in the bill. The $8.7 billion is about converting traditional cars or fossil fuel driven cars into electronic vehicles and electronic charging points. If you recall, this is one of the line items in the stimulus plan as well as the new budget plan. Guess where these minerals or metals for which make up the ion batteries or lithium batteries for these cars? They come from the Chinese region, and they come from the regions where slave labor is practiced. So the Democrats as well as the Republicans have seen this and said this has to go. So this is where this specific clause is coming from. I'm sure that you may see this also dipping into other regions of the Asian republics where China is. It also may come soon into Afghanistan if they begin to try and uncover something from that area.
And Oregon police and firefighters sue the governor over COVID-19 vaccine mandate. New York City Teachers Union to take legal action against call for layoffs of unvaccinated staff. So this vaccination is now starting a new round of wrangling, I should say.
Yeah.
Why are people not willing to get vaccinated, sir?
They don't trust the government. It's very simple. They don't trust the government. And there is no leadership at the CDC level, and there's inconsistent news comes out. Remember, AstraZeneca is used in Australia. In some countries it is not. UK it is used. AstraZeneca is in the middle of a settlement in EU. Then you have two viruses. People say two viruses are good, but two vaccines are good and two vaccines may not be enough against Delta variant. So they say you need a booster virus. Then they say, you have some, do you have side effects? Yeah, you do have some side effects and some collateral consequences that come from it. So what people are saying is, we're not going to be the guinea pigs, right? Test me if you want for virus, but don't force me to vaccinate. Many of us can naturally fight it. So this is the reason why some of the states have, vaccination mandates. Some of the states don't have vaccination mandates. Now, the question, therefore, is this one that you're referring to, New York City. The New York City teachers, basically, some of those teachers who are not vaccinated, they said they would be terminated from their specific jobs. So the union is fighting this specific mandate that has gone to the schools, which is to say that only those who are vaccinated will be allowed, and those who are not vaccinated will be either terminated or will be suspended until such time they do. Remember, this is also going to extend to the US Army. The Defense Secretary has mandated that all the people in the Army need to be vaccinated. This is not a United States issue, sir. This is an issue that is prevalent widely all around the world, Europe, Australia, etc. Only nations to some extent, such as, for example, Asia, India, Britain, they all have adopted the pro-vaccination policy and have managed it very well. US is still is locked in a quagmire of mandate and no mandate.
And Texas ruling by SCOTUS is not unconstitutional, says the Attorney General Ken Belkin. The Texas AG goes on to say that the abortion law must be at state level. So your thoughts on this? It's limited to the state of Texas, isn't it?
It is limited to the state of Texas as it relates to the case that was contested in Supreme Court. By the way, Ken Belkin is not from Texas. Ken Belkin is the New York Attorney General who basically...
I see. I stand corrected.
Yeah. Paxton is the Texas Attorney General. So no, I think that he was opining on a piece that the judgment of the Supreme Court cannot be construed as unconstitutional. The reason why it is not a national overturning of Roe versus Wade. This is a specific clause which says that as far as the Texas is concerned, said, we passed this bill That is, you have choice up to 6 weeks. After 6 weeks or around 6 weeks, when you hear the heartbeat of a life inside the womb of a mother, then the abortion is not permitted in the state. This was contested, and the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 ruling, where John Roberts, the Chief Justice, who is considered to be a conservative judge, ruled with the minority in stating this is borderlining Roe versus Wade, notwithstanding the fact it is not that, but I am voting with the dissent, and he voted with the dissent. Now, this sent tremors around over the weekend in the Democratic Party. All of them are up in arms and trying to say that the entire Biden administration is going to make sure that they go after with a sledgehammer against Texas, but also to make sure that the Roe versus Wade, which is about pro-choice rather than pro-life, is preserved and protected, including some outlandish claims of court packing of the Supreme Court was being contemplated by the Democrats to preserve some of these liberal judgments.
And now let's take a look at India news. Indian Prime Minister Modi to visit United States late in September for bilateral discussions with Mr. Biden, and also will be addressing industry groups. India for early waiver of trips for COVID vaccinations. India, Croatia share common position on Afghanistan, says Dr. S. Jaishankar. India, Nepal sign MOUs worth rupees 4,200 million to reconstruct projects damaged in 2015. So India is suddenly reaching out to various nations, and I think this trip is going to be a very eventful one for Mr. Modi.
Mr. Modi is very eventful trip, and mixing, holding hands with Mr. Biden, and it will be fascinating to see what they speak. The trip is being touted as something for extending and expanding the scope of the bilateral relationship. I think they're going to rev up the climate accord, because India is a very big partner with the United States on the climate. They're going to also rev up the thing around the vaccines and the production of the vaccines and supplying to the world and preserving. They're also going to rev up joint areas of collaboration in terms of tackling with technology, sciences, artificial intelligence, etc., with to combat China, which is again a common. It remains to be seen some of these contentious areas like trades and tariffs, how they're going to get passed. Also, India is a big buyer of the energy, crude. Probably India is already shifting, recognizing that the biofuels are under ban in the United States. So these are some of the topics. If you remember, Blinken came in and Dr. Jaishankar came in and met with Mr. Blinken. Now Mr. Shringle has come in and laid the framework. Mr. Kelly was in India talking about and saying rah about the India-US partnership on the climate accord. So I think we are going to see some interesting things, and let's see what the progressives say about this thing. You remember last time, they made a furor when Mr. Trump was the president. Interesting to see what they're going to do.
And India's foreign exchange reserves increased by 16.633 billion to record 633.558 billion. We told you about it when India crossed 600. Now it's at 633. Very impressive. Indian services activity rebound fastest in 18 months in August, showing promise of revival amid rising business orders. Indian merchandise exports jumped 45% and imports jumped 51%, and India seems confident of meeting the 400 billion export target for fiscal year 2022. Ladakh exports its first batch of apricots to Dubai. Sridharji, all good news in terms of exports and foreign exchange.
No, I think the green shoots are visible in India, which is namely the recovery of economy, as well as some of the sectors that they have focused on. One of the things that has helped India is capturing those markets, which basically are beginning to capture segments of the markets that got affected as a result of Chinese impact of COVID, and many people not prepared to do business. So there has been a spillover not to the extent that one expected, but there has been a positive buoyancy in expanding those opportunities. The example of the previous, just to relate that the rebuilding of the relationship with Nepal in terms of the 4,200 million Nepalese million rupees for the infrastructure, and then around coordinating with Denmark, Lithuania, and Croatia. All this has got a three purpose. One is around the relationship. Second is around the trade, which is around the export boost that they're trying to find every market where they can go and lay their hands and to see how to expand that market in terms of when you have less demand in India because of the shutdowns, how you can take this produce and take the manufactured goods into the specific markets. I think it augurs well. One thing still is a big concern is that India is beginning to rear its ugly head around the COVID situation. That is that's something that we'll cover very shortly. The foreign reserves is a reflection that money is coming in, sir. That's the summary.
Indian Army orders over 100 explosive-laden suicide drones under its emergency procurement powers. India and US signed project agreement for joint development of air-launched unmanned aerial vehicles. India set to join select list of nations capable of satellite-based tracking of nuclear missile tracking ship. So, Sridharji, a lot of stuff happening in terms of treaties and getting new missiles for India to defend itself.
Yes, just to on the missiles, I think we covered on this, which is on the earlier section. I think INS Dhruva is going to be. It is this massive ship will have the tracking facility. So India launched a satellite, and that satellite is capable of tracking any intercontinental nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. Two countries India fears, China and Pakistan. Both of them have that. So now this gives the ability that, and they're targeted at some key cities and defense establishments and so on. This gives the ability to monitor from the ship and then mitigate and thwart any attacks coming from. Most of the submarine or sea level things, I think India is well equipped with its capabilities. So this gives it the new power. The India-US arrangement on this launch of the unmanned aerial launch from air launch of the unmanned aerial vehicles is again a new dimension. It's weaponry. It's not built. It's a project that's been initiated. All this means that on the defense as the security side, they continue to keep an eye on.
And India also breached the 400,000 active COVID cases after initial promise of slipping below 300,000. India has now vaccinated 684 million doses with single dose and 535 million with two doses, standing I'm getting this wrong. India has vaccinated 684 million doses with single doses at 535 million and double doses at 159 million. So the two should add up. I'm finding it a little bit, maybe right. Okay, go ahead, sir.
No, it will not. The single doses will not add up. They exclude from that when they do single doses. When you have double doses, they exclude the numbers. So that is why. So that is why the numbers look. Those who are only single doses. If you have double doses, you're double doses. You're done. So therefore, those who are single doses, right? So therefore, that's how they calculate this percentages: 54%, 55%, etc. So those who have got that number is, I think it's 539 or 538 million, roughly the number. And that's again, I mean, we are looking at that 800 or 840 million number in terms of the threshold to cross. They're about 57, 58% right now as we speak. That is the good news. I think the bad news is everybody is now talking. We were contemplating about a week ago whether India will go below 300. Now we are talking about India is above 400,000. Apparently 44 or 45,000 came, new cases came yesterday, and of which only one state contributed close to 30 or 31,000. And you can guess which state that is. That is Kerala. So it's widely being discussed in social media circles. Look, it's way, way below where we are here in United States. All you need to do is look at the numbers globally. India is still somewhere in the 10th or 9th in the league tables in terms of the active cases. But India is India because of the volume and density of population relative to some of the other countries. So India has to demonstrate that they have to somehow contain, at least by isolating the 2 states rather than it spreading. Actually, 7 states, if when I looked at the numbers, make up a significant part of that active case numbers.
Let's take a quick look at markets. The Dow Jones stumbled after a major miss in August jobs report. The markets were supported by tech stocks. While the bullish trend remains for the rest of the year, the markets will witness such gyrations based on inflation and jobs reports. And here are the market numbers. Sridharji, with your permission, I'm putting up market sheet and it's up there now, sir. Go ahead.
So Dow was up 74 points.
Down 74.
That was down 74 points. That took the usually the large cap takes those what you call as the economic recovery stocks, which are in the Dow. They take a hit whenever the markets go, whenever you have the bad unemployment numbers. S&P did very well to remain, at very, very small percentage. Always the tech stocks is the hedge. So the tech stocks were up modestly. You can see energy now will be in that 69.72 barrel, $69 to $70 barrel number between oil and Brent. You can see the rates. So this is very important. 1.324%. The rates have remained around that 1.2 to less than 1.4%. So the general market, those of us who are in the markets, we believe that this low interest rate is what is driving the profits of the companies. The profits of the companies drive the stock market values. So they're prepared to ignore the inflation numbers. They're prepared to ignore the employment numbers. But look at that stock and see whether S&P companies continue to drive profit as a result of the market conditions. The low rate is the key clincher in that, which is where the markets are seeing the profits. And I believe that the markets will continue to rise. We are now in the second wave of recalibrated numbers. United States will meet the targets, and those who are, again, equities is the markets to be in 2021. Well, Bitcoin crossed 51 and just got under $51,000. Ethereum is the stock to watch. If you have Ethereum stock, I think you can expect some reasonable outcomes as you complete the year. That's where the maximum growth is going to come from. Bitcoin has significant market cap out of the cryptocurrencies. So with that, we wrap up the market story.
Yes, indeed. And this brings us to a close on today's DGI. Thanks for watching, and please do like, share, and subscribe. Sridharji, thank you very much, sir. And we'll be back again tomorrow, bright and early.
Thank you. Namaskar. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on Monday.